I like the the staff is gone. Credits fully roll. End of credit scene.
Oh, love it. Is Echo getting cut by the broken glass?
His knuckles definitely when he shattered it, and like he didn't care. And he's a good enough fighter that he should have known to hit and pull his fist back, but he didn't. He just hit and like crunched the glass. So I'd say he's got like 1 or 2 points of damage from that.
Yeah, no worries.
All right.
And with that, friends, we're going to go ahead and jump over to the after talk so that we can discuss all the wonderful things that just happened and answer any questions any of you folks who are watching might have. Let's go ahead and jump over there.
I'm around for maybe like 10 more minutes in case if there's any questions directed at me.
Sounds good. In fact,
if there's not, I'm gonna bounce out.
Since I know you need to get to sleep, why don't we do the thing that we normally do at the end? And for you, we'll go ahead and do the thing you had fun with and the player character you wanna, if you're good with that.
The fight was cool. I only caught some of it because I kept getting distracted because I had to have the volume on my phone so that I could see it with what was happening.
Yeah.
And it was conflicting with the audio from the computer, which was fun and interesting. That was great. I did not hear that Calder had left the breakfast nook, which is why I like looked at him because I was frantically searching for the stupid link at the time.
All good.
Yeah.
It's okay. Given everything that's going on, no blame.
I was very happy you were able to make the stream.
Me too.
Me too.
Like the other option would be me sitting in a storage unit crying more. So I'll take this. The socials are 1 silver key. I don't know what else I had to. I don't remember.
Yeah, one silver key. And if you would be so kind, if you would be so kind as to drop that link again. M unfortunately had an apartment fire, and they're safe, and that's good. But living is expensive when you don't actually have a place that's yours. When you're not renting, they need help with hotel, with moving expenses, with a security deposit on another place once that happens. So if you would be so kind, at the very least,
the cheapest place
that
I have found that lets me have like a private space is $900 a week.
So if you would be so kind, at least grab the link, tweet it out, get some attention on it if you could. They could really, really use the help. And if you have the ability, please consider donating yourself. Jeff, what was up? Okay, thought you were saying something.
Unless you're pivoting to me.
But... M, great to have you again. Very, very glad you're here. You should probably go to sleep. Or at least to bed.
Bye.
Bye. Have a good night. And I'll actually, now that there's 2 or 3, I can go ahead and minimize myself. So that was pretty fun.
That was fun. Come back if not. And
there we go. Perfect. Okay, wonderful. Okay, so yeah, wow. I have to say, I have run a lot of combat in a lot of games, and the back and forth there, particularly with the counters and counter-counters, and the playing off of what you know about each other's characters was just A+ amazing. And the fact that it came down to Fireball versus Lightning Bolt, which I was so hoping it would. Had
to escalate it. Had to escalate to that point.
Yes, and that's partly, what the wisdom saves are about. I don't know if you want to reveal anything about what that was about.
Watching the fight, Calder picked up on it that Charlotte is not just a wizard anymore. she's pulling spells from a different source, and since she wasn't born a sorcerer, and she's not carrying around any new holy symbols, it's not too far a jump. She's picked up a few levels of warlock.
Something he is well enough familiar with.
Yeah, a very specific patron that we've seen before on the stream has a new warlock, and it's when Charlotte said that her and Laura had been training together, it wasn't just sparring.
And Calder heavily suspects that there's not something normal, because he, by all right and reason, has knowledge of what a warlock is and how they work.
Well, yeah, I mean, he's a tiefling, but you did
he's a tiefling, and he's a tiefling who's raised by a warlock. He knows what they are.
And she did not. She specifically said that it is not a demon and it is not a devil. And I liked your response to that. Like, okay, those are the two that I'm worried about.
If
you do you.
Devil, if it's a devil, I have questions, and if it's a demon, I have to kill it. So
yeah,
if it's neither, I don't care.
Calder versus Swoops, 2022.
Yeah, that was another thing. Oh man, that was back in the Forge of Fury. I was wondering if it would ever come up, if anyone would ever do like a divine sense or a detect magic long enough to see that Swoops pings as infernal, but he's specifically a demon.
Because imps are fun.
Yeah, because well, the familiar can be celestial fiend or fae. It doesn't specify what kind of fiend.
True.
And he's not a closet, because that's a specific familiar pact thing that like it's a different kind of warlock that does that. He's not a closet.
Yeah.
In fact, I have what he is. If people are curious, I have it in his notes.
Totally.
Where did I put it? Or no, I know what order he's in. Which of the demon lords he's like, because demons, in my understanding in 5e, is that there's the demon lords, and then you are filed into like which demon lord you serve.
Communicai says that
like in broad strokes, yes, the demons are servants of pure chaos. So it's basically which of in your pile of demons, who's on top?
Yeah, Communicai mentions that Swoops is an archfiend who's just slumming it for the lulz.
Well, so he's a part of the Order of Demons that follows Albox Ob, who is the demon lord of vermin. And it hasn't come up yet, and it probably won't ever in the campaign, but Charlotte didn't see, but when she was making the pact to get a familiar, she interacted with Swoops in his original form. When she was making the deal of, hey, you're going to come be my familiar and work for me, sort of thing. The reason Swoops, Scoots, like all the different like animals he can turn into are like the smallest version possible is because that's what he's getting out of it, is he gets to experience the mortal plane, and he gets to experience what it is to be tiny, because real Swoops in the infernal plane is not tiny.
That'll be a fun day.
It will be. If it comes to that, it'll be very interesting. I actually, because Jeff brought it up back in Waterdeep, it's entirely possible that a certain tiny demon you've already interacted with will make another. Now that my voice is better, will make another appearance, and it would be very interesting to see him like pay deference to Swoops. It might be fun. I don't know. We'll see.
He's not a demon lord. He's not an archfiend. But I'm not going to say, we're on the totem pole in.
He's up there somewhere. Yeah. So the fight was incredible.
Oh yeah. I'm happy I gave myself the handicap, because that would just have been a deeply underwhelming fight.
Polymorph is a very fun spell, but in this particular case, I see that. But man, I don't know. I'm 99% certain you were doing this intentionally, but being like, okay, I'm going to handicap myself because I know how powerful I am, came off on my side as very condescending. Like very,
I was
I'm stronger
that's the
than you, and I know
Calder
it.
is an arrogant. Is at the
Yeah.
end of the day still an arrogant asshole.
It was a great piece of role play, and I loved it. I just wanted to call it out as a piece of role play so that no one at home thinks that that's what, that's how you're actually like. That was just an amazing piece of character work.
But talking about power plays, it felt so powerful to shrug off that fireball.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it didn't help that he rolled mostly 1s and 2s on the damage, but yes.
So good.
I got a very similar moment when I cracked the barrier the first time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just actually like unabashedly hurting.
It is not often that Charlotte takes damage, like damage.
Calder did damage to an abjuration wizard with a physical attack. He made a melee strike.
It dealt psychic damage.
Yeah, it did psychic damage. That's fine. That's magic for you.
Yeah.
But critically, it's a mode of fighting that Calder typically doesn't do. It's not something that he particularly enjoys or otherwise seeks. But it was definitely a way of flexing Calder in a way that I haven't really had an excuse to use him, because I designed him more as I'm going to lean back and cast and cast spells that basically read "make your save or suffer."
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh man, I am loving the trend of the dice, because she certainly doesn't have the stats to back it up. That Charlotte is kind of a beast with athletics. Like she ungrappled herself in the fight versus the roper. She's rolling well enough to make up for her -1 modifier versus all these checks with Calder. Like
she has fate on her side.
Charlotte grabs the grappler feat just to surprise people.
Next time we get a feat, I'm taking athlete for Charlotte.
The dice tell stories sometimes, or at least our minds see patterns in them, and sometimes the dice play favorites. And it seems very much like athletics for you is one of those unwritten proficiencies you have.
Yeah. So hopefully, once we level to a point, she's multi-classing, so it might be a bit before she gets her next feat. But that is definitely going to be me paying homage to that if she's going to take athlete next time she can.
I am in particular excited about the spell book, because some of the spells in there I planted as potential keys to later puzzles. Planar Binding especially is one of my very favorites. I was going to include Contact Other Plane, but I felt like having both of those together would have been, or right away would have been overpowered. So I think Planar Binding is a really nice, like, Harry Dresden-esque experience, so that you can like call something in and try to pump it for information and make a nice little social scene out of it.
Yeah, and she's not to the level where she could cast it yet, but for laying the ground for work in the future. Yeah.
And it was just overall just deeply satisfying, and it was a good showcase match, just showing what these two characters can do and how they play off of each other and how they respond to each other. And like at the end of the day, like Charlotte definitely earned the win, and Calder can still feel superior because he knows he wasn't going all out.
Yeah, well, she was too. She wasn't either. She didn't open the gate with fucking lightning bolt, and she didn't cast cloud of daggers on you. She didn't use swoops at all in the fight. Like the whole like you pointing up and threatening her, I was like, nah, man, like that was the decision of like, no, she's not going to rely on swoops for this fight. So she sent him away, just like, I don't need him to fight you, sort of a posturing thing.
Yeah.
She's a wizard. She can have some hubris.
It's a prerequisite, I think. Let me check the book.
But yeah, the match went well. It went exactly as I thought it was going to, and well, not like the exact components, but like the tone definitely carried through, and I thought it was great. And also the entire dialogue of like what they were thinking, and like why Calder is mad, and Charlotte revealing that Charlotte has some issues going on right now. That's it.
Charlotte's pissed too. She's just a lot better at hiding it.
And we've got a lot of threads going out now, because a lot of this is what happens when adventurers level up, right? You start getting more quest hooks than you can deal with at any one time, and a lot of them are big. Like, you now have a breadcrumb trail to go to Silvery Moon, which is fairly close. You still have orcs in the north. Each of you is going to start getting some individualized plots as you begin to continue on with your secret society or not. It's going to be there's a lot happening all at once, and I'm really excited to find out how you all prioritize what's coming.
Well, right now with the loss of the staff, the next move is find out where it went, and if it went home, good. If it didn't go home, that's a problem.
Yeah, Echo's reaching a breaking point here. He's like you said, there's that physical relief from not being attuned to the staff anymore. The staff was the reason he was feeling feverish and he wasn't able to sleep well. I figured it's something a little bit like being an inefficient conductor. Like, he can wield the staff, but it's such high level magic that even just being attuned to it was doing damage to him on just not like an HP level, but
like that being tied to that kind of magic before you're ready is, like, by the text implied to be extraordinarily dangerous.
At level 1, remember, I mean,
he's a level 1 cleric.
Yeah.
Because especially with how, like, magic within Faerun kind of works, is that the way levels work for Faerun magic is basically a muscle. The more you level, the more and higher your spellcaster is, the more that the magic muscle develops. So you were essentially, so you were essentially pushing a lot more energy than your body is capable of holding.
Magical equivalent of a hernia, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it, I am looking forward to Echo getting some answers about, where the staff is, the talking with Tamora and hearing from her, getting the feelings from her that he didn't fuck up the ritual. It might take a bit for that to sink in, but just hearing that from her, if he's going to trust anybody's authority on this, sorry, what's her face, Illustrial, like, you're just a weird elf who suddenly appeared in front of him. Like, it's great that apparently you think he's great and he didn't do anything wrong, but he's not going to trust that. Like, come on, it was a shame.
Absolutely. And yes, Echo singed the inside of his brain, essentially. And that's and it's interesting. And when his head clears, if his head ever clears again, but when his head clears, he might remember that she expressed surprise that you were the one that she was coming to.
Well, that part he's not too.
And well, the thing is, though, who else?
Yeah,
that's kind of
that's a good question. Like, who was the wizard expecting to find?
Wizards cannot, like, so it's not Charlotte, because wizards cannot attune the staff.
No, it takes a cleric or a paladin. And well, that's the thing too, is that Echo was attuned to the staff. By being attuned to the staff, you understand how it works. He understands how the spell was supposed to function.
Yes,
it's supposed to bring Clarion back to life. And the penalty that we established, where he can't cast until he takes a long rest, usually the part of the spell that only is supposed to apply if the person you're bringing back from the dead has been dead for longer than a year, which, in the story timeline, he's only been dead for maybe 2.5 months at this point.
Definitely not a year.
Yeah. And so that, and that might tie in a bit to why Clarion was thinking it had been such a long time, because on his side of things, it seems like he thought it was centuries.
Yeah.
And again, what Calder's pissed about, of like, why wasn't he in the equivalent of heaven? Why wasn't he with his god? Why was he in this weird in-between space where we found him?
Yeah, because if that wasn't the Shadowfell, where the fuck was it? Because that wasn't normal.
And I feel like the necromantic whistle has not made its last appearance in this campaign. Right now, it is part of the horde of the Dragon Night Scale. but I
Which
feel
will
like
be an interesting return.
I feel like we'll obviously we'll have to talk to Jen about what her ideas are for her character going forward. But is this a curable condition? Is this something that Clarion would even want to cure, or would he rather, try to find a new normal? It's
There's
going to be
benefits. There's
again.
benefits to being undead.
There
are absolute benefits to being returned, and they're
Yeah.
strong.
There's a lot of different plots happening here, and juggling them all is going to be a very, very stressful task, but I'm really looking forward to it.
I had a lot of fun getting to play loopy, exhausted, feverish Echo telling Hyacinth about what happened, and
Yeah,
that
that was
whole
fun.
interaction was so
That was really fun.
Just M being like,
You did
write
what?
more. God, why didn't you write to us about all of this shit?
And we have a new animal beastie, which is going to, I'm pretty sure canonically, is just going to be really upset at Charlotte going forward.
Me as a player, and then extension to Charlotte, was super excited that you threw something at me that I could just fucking kill. Like,
yeah, that
because
was
of who
nice.
the new patron is. Like, she really liked having an actual target that she didn't care about doing lethal damage to.
I'm naming the giant fire beetle Sparky, I think.
Sparky. Awesome.
And I named the weasel Nibbles.
Nibbles.
Oh no, that's too cute.
Yes, and so that means we have Badger, Chomper, Panther is Noir, the elk is Biggins. The stag beetle is Chip, the rat is Fizzlebits, and now we have Nibbles and Sparky.
Oh, I did type it in the chat earlier, but a very important question for you, Jeff. Mm-hmm. Back in his fuckboy stage, did Calder have Bieber bangs? I need to know this.
I would have to say yes.
Yes.
They didn't look good with the horns.
They didn't look good with the horns then came in, like the horns came in more, and then they would no. Because originally, he would have had only the little devil horns at first when he was that age.
I'm gonna say this is like later teen years.
Yeah, the horns had only just started coming in.
I always enjoy.
It's not his fault they get bigger every year.
I always enjoy playing the incredibly intelligent and logical, but has no idea of the consequences of their actions kind of character. Sven was a really nice sort of comedic relief after a very intense fight.
If he does it again, I'm absolutely turning him into a fish.
Yeah, and it's not like he, it's not malice on his part. He just he saw that there was a thing that he should do, and he just did it.
Went and did it. Yeah.
And like,
okay, cool. Have distinct cool. Now have distinct memories of suffocating from lack of air on the floor, and when you wake up, that should hopefully be a deterrent.
He strikes me as very much you were only worrying about whether or not you could. You didn't take time to think about whether or not you should.
Yes. Yeah.
But I also I really like Sven because he he seems like the perfect foil for a younger Barnabas who used to go out adventuring instead of being a king, and now he's got to deal with his assistant who keeps causing problems for him.
And is constantly watching him and is constantly trying to make sure he's safe and yeah.
I can totally see
the political and tactful wherewithal of your average untrained dog.
Well, but I can totally see how a younger Barnabas who went out adventuring, like we've established, he used to be an adventurer. I can totally see how having a king who went and did that would make someone like Sven be like Sven. I can see the cause and effect there.
It is. You're looking at the remnants of an adventuring party, right?
Yeah.
This back in Barnabas's adventuring days, this impulsiveness probably got them into trouble a lot, but Sven also was probably the one who solved all the really hard puzzles. And I like, it's a sort of retired adventurer kind of feel. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I like it.
It works. The tone works really well for the character. It serves as a similarly kind of pseudo-serious thing that Barnabas can be considered more reasonable about.
The two of them are still kind of foils of each other, even with Barnabas's newfound, power of friendship.
Yeah.
But like, and it's always nice to see a mode out of Barnabas that isn't self pity. So.
Yes.
I gotta say too, M's, because you said Sven walks in, and I looked at M like, is this something you guys like? Was Sven hanging out here? Did Hyacinth know about this? Was this a secret? And then M's like, who the fuck? Like, oh, okay, this wasn't planned. Sven just showed up, and that was a perfect reaction.
And the reveal quote unquote of the fact that he's a wizard and not a cleric meant Hyacinth's reaction allowed that to happen in a way that was even better. I was planning on having the reveal being I can read this wizard spell book because haha I'm a wizard by the way and not a cleric, whereas instead it was
shield
spell. Like Shield of Faith is a thing, but it doesn't work like that.
No, it's not a reaction.
Yeah, big fan of that. The way that entire scene went down was perfect. I loved it.
Yeah. And we got in my mind, we got our first on-screen appearance of Anton. Granted, it was a teen Anton, and that character is gonna be so much fun to hate.
Yes, and yeah, you definitely have not seen the last of him. I'm curious. Go ahead.
Can we consider literally shoving his trauma into his friend's mind to deal damage a form of Calder opening up?
Like that's the idea behind shadow magic, is that you're taking like pure guilt and pure loathing and like misery and crystallizing it. So Calder's drawing on what he knows.
Well, yeah, but the decision to use it in a spar with this isn't someone you're trying to kill and get past in a dungeon. This is someone he's going to have to interact with again. Yeah. Did he consciously be like, I'm going to hit her with my psychic things and that will inform her about my trauma? Or was it an after the fact of being like, oh, was that oversharing?
That would definitely, it's more the latter. Calder doesn't know what it's like to be hit by a shadow blade. He really doesn't.
Okay.
All he knows that when he learned the spell, I take misery and loathing and crystallize it into a physical shape.
Yeah, there hasn't been anyone that has survived a hit from it before now, or survived long enough from a hit for it to actually like give him back,
or was coherent or was a entity coherent enough to survive it. So
yeah.
Camino Sai says you need to be more open with your problems. No, not like that.
I actually think Charlotte sees it as a good thing. But take that with a grain of salt because Charlotte's best friend is Lore.
Charlotte's not super healthy right now either, yeah.
Yeah, she's definitely, you can see, like, she's covered in new scars, she's covered in bruises and stuff. Like, her and Lore have been bonding over sparring and violence. Which isn't a very good long-term coping mechanism. But it's what's currently working for them, being able to work some things out. Yeah. And that's why Charlotte wanted to spar with Calder. Charlotte can tell that in a lot of key ways, Calder and Lore are very alike, which is probably why they don't get along.
100%. Like they are they are charismatic, opinionated people who have very different origins and very different experiences, but are similarly quite focused on their given drive. And when those two things meet, they either become the best of buddies or the worst of enemies.
So what happens going forward? I mean, next session we've got Vampire Hunter Part 2.
Yeah, we're checking back there.
If schedules line up with both Jen and M feeling up to it.
Of course. Yeah, there are lots of circumstances happening. Jen is not here because of a medical thing, not a serious medical thing.
But just a scheduled thing that didn't line up.
M, of course, we don't really know. So we'll hopefully within 2 weeks we'll have some things settled out, but we'll see. But theoretically, the next session is Vampire Hunters Part 2. Plus whatever else we throw in there. What is next for the Bad Decisions Club?
I think that the most likely scenario for them is trying to find some kind of lead on the staff, which will probably entail a trip to Silvery Moon because they would have the ability to know.
Yeah.
It
If
is one of the most magical places in all of Faerun.
Yes,
oh
that's true.
man, oh no. So I'm guessing Echo wasn't asleep very long because there was a conversation and then people left to go find him. So maybe he was asleep for like 20, maybe 40 minutes. I wonder it's gonna be a thing of like there is someone on the estate right now that has a scrying spell, but he's currently being walked off the estate. Like we know, meta-wise, we know Sven can cast scrying. Do we
But
catch him in time?
Can he cast Scry on the staff?
I don't know.
You're not a wizard.
I'm not a wizard. Charlotte would have a
that's
better
wizard
idea.
shit.
Yeah, meta-wise,
Mhm.
given like they know enough about it, and Echo certainly does, to give a detailed enough description for him to scry on the specific object.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's just, that's one avenue. Like you said, going to Silver Moon is another one.
Like getting the goal would be get a lead.
Yeah, get a
After
lead.
getting after a lead, Calder does have the note of return check on the dinosaurs,
But that entails first meeting up in Tribor with Kretha and Vic again.
and checking on the dinosaurs.
I think, checking on the dinosaurs is
A fun little side quest.
fun little side quest. Overarching plots, we're definitely headed towards this orc war.
And as a sort of meta note, so that you all know coming forward, it's not a big surprise. Gale, you already know this because it happened in the other game. If you have an in with the Harpers, you have an in to a network of teleportation circles.
Oh man.
One of which is in Silvery Moon, and one of which is in Waterdeep.
Oh, the Harpers are rad as hell. I love that.
No,
Yes.
okay, meta-wise, Olivia Gale, I know that about the Harpers and all the
Yes.
cool shit that comes with being a Harper. Echo has no
Not a
fucking
goddamn clue. They don't advertise, right? They don't advertise.
No, they're a
technically
secret
like
society.
secret society spies, kind of.
Yeah, they're a secret society that fades in and out of existence. So,
But at the same time, Illustrial has reached out to Echo, told him to go to Silvery Moon and ask about the Harpers, which is, I'm guessing a pretty fast track to being initiated.
I believe Illustrial is like in charge of the Harpers, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure she's highly connected. So showing up on her recommendation is probably going to fast track him. I don't know whether Echo would want to be a Harper spy. I don't know if that would be a good fit for his personality.
Like an informant, like as a performer, that definitely I think would fit.
Yeah, like that end of things. But that's something he's going to have to figure out. He's going to go, one, who the fuck are you people?
Yeah.
And once he learns what they're all about, deciding whether or not that is something he wants to do.
Yes.
And right now, as a player, there's so many different ways it could go. I'm uncertain how it's going to turn out.
And in the next couple of games, like there will be, in fact, the next time we see Kretha, she's going to be getting a message from her erstwhile patron, with her particular secret society, and a lot. I mean, and the Lord's Alliance is definitely keeping tabs on Calder, and you can expect folks to start asking for information. Like, especially once if you're on the front lines at the Stone Tooth or in the know, as it were, they'll be asking for information. You'll be able to spread stories that are true or false as you prefer. Like the party is getting a lot of attention, which means before too long, you're going to have a lot of power. And I'm not just talking about spells and magical items. I'm talking about social power. And I'm really interested to see what you all do with it.
Oh yeah, when we hit level 8, that's like the tail end of the minor adventures of the adventurers set, and when we get into 9, like 9 through 12 is like mover and shaker territory.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, it's they're getting to you early because like adventuring parties are not an uncommon thing in Faerun, and most of them go out and die. But ones that have been through what you've been through and have demonstrated the power that you've demonstrated, folks are gonna line up to try to figure out how to get you on their side.
Yeah. And
I also appreciated you. Sorry, as an aside, I do want to thank you, Rob, for playing off as Barnabas with me asking the political questions, which I'm the only avenue that would come up.
Yes.
I do want to, like, Echo wasn't in the scene, but I loved watching that. Like, have you sent any, somebody to ask the many arrows? And it's like, Echo technically did already.
But critically, the
Orcs.
dwarf, but
Yeah.
like it's like I really haven't. It's like I don't really
You
have
don't
any
know that
ties to it.
happened.
Yeah, but you know the battle hammers, right?
Yes.
Like the largest and most important dwarfen clan of the last age.
And it allowed me to drop the canonical fact that Illustriel not only was the leader of Silvery Moon, but she did in fact foment an alliance between several like human civilizations and several dwarven civilizations, including Mithril Hall and Citadel Adbar, like specifically.
Yeah.
So that would have been before Barnabas was the ruler, but like he would absolutely, if Echo mentions that he saw or that he saw
Sure, we'll get to it.
I keep wanting to say
Like,
Eladriel because Lord of the Rings.
That's absolutely going to be some interesting pillow talk later. But
yeah, it'll be a lot of fun because he knows. Like he would have been a very small dwarf the last time he saw her, but he knows, and she probably doesn't look any different.
And we also drifted close to we mentioned because I believe the chief that signed the treaty with Battlehammer is long dead.
Yes.
Yeah.
And like
And
ascended
orcs-
to minor, and I think he's like ascended to minor godhood or some shit. But
Yeah, orcs
but
only
his-
live for like 60 to 70 years. Shorter
yeah, but
if they're out on the
yeah.
battlefield.
But he was an orc war chief that died happily of old age.
So he was like
That
80.
doesn't and that doesn't happen.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
not normal.
So
Yeah.
he ascended to like minor godhood. He's like in the orc pantheon now, and his
Nice.
successor is one of his he had like 30 sons across 8 wives. So
And I love you have now opened up. Welcome back, Rye. We are just wrapping up. We're talking about the game. So we're talking about how the game's going. It went really, really well.
This is the after show.
I love specifically that you decided you were going to reach out both through Illustrial to try to figure out who's leading the orcs, and to Many Arrows. It gives me 2 different places to drop information once I figure out the information. I don't know yet. I don't know yet.
Absolutely.
So
Like, because like,
Yes,
I spotted that question kind of caught you off guard of like, are the Many Arrows involved? Would they be? I don't know yet.
I was
You're not wrong when you say at the very least they would definitely be.
They'd have an opinion.
Yeah, they would know it, and they would at the very least have some kind of non-aggression thing, right? Probably,
Like
maybe, who knows?
Like either
They would
they
have to
because
take a
like
stance.
Thank you.
either they are involved, either they aren't involved but are silently endorsing it, or they don't, or they're not involved and they do not endorse it. All of which tell very different stories.
I also, man, you hit me with that. Ask me any one question. I was like, fuck.
Yeah,
I
I
know
did that on purpose.
What? But man, I wanted to ask about Clarion. I wanted to ask about Echo's dad. I wanted to ask about just fucking so many different things. And I'm like,
I did that and I specifically had her say at the at the end, like, we're running out of time. Give me a homework. Don't give me all of the homework. Marilyn Defoe asks, is there a monk? I believe Gail, you would have a good answer to this one.
Echo the Goblin is a monk. He's multi-classed. He is a level 6 monk and 1 cleric. The 1 cleric is very recent.
Will you be updating the image with his new facial scarring?
We'll get, once we get to that in canon. So yeah, he's definitely got burn marks and shit around his eyes from where he was literally like glowing with the radiant light of channeling the staff to do things, and it has left a mark. And we'll get into that more once we get into that more.
And
Want to keep
Defoe,
that a little closer to the chest.
I don't know that I necessarily agree that it's the best class, but I would say that the monk is the most underrated class. It is it is widely considered to be the absolute worst of the worst, and I just don't see it. I don't see it that way.
I don't see it that way. The monks they're niche and have a lot going on. The problems with the monk are frankly outside of the monk's control. and it's like it's the weird stapled on cultural baggage that we are bringing in as players, that the class has nothing to do with, but people want a martial arts class,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of culture that comes from martial arts, and
Yeah,
so
it's a great
stapling
class.
it's
I
a
mean,
great mechanically fantastic class, absolutely.
Yeah, love it.
and Echo specifically, he's not from a monastery. He's not a monk in that sense. He is a monk in that he has mastery over his body and the mechanics, and he can fight with his fists and open palm style. And he learned that from how to fight from the different members of his circus family, who may have learned themselves from a monastery or from a different tradition, or just from like, picking up how to fight in the streets. Like, Echo flavor wise is more of a, was it, like a pugilist than a true monk.
Yeah, yeah. It's not all flowy kung fu. It's more like
It's more like scrappy
brawl.
fighting.
Yeah,
It's
Like,
scrappy fighting with like a touch of acrobatics.
well, yeah, because he does have that grace of
Yeah.
being he's the background is entertainer, and specifically he is an aerialist. He does the in the silks and the with the hoops. Like, he can walk a tightrope, he can do floor routines. He is a dancer and aerialist in that sense, and that's where the grace comes from, rather than like a specific martial arts training.
Poor Ryandy fell for the classic blunder. He says, when my friends all played the first time, I took Bard thinking I would be in the background. But that's, yeah, in general, the Bard, if you have one, is usually the
Center
face. Because you put all those points into charisma, everyone's like, yeah, put the Bard in front of them, you talk to them. It's either Bard or Paladin or a particularly high charisma cleric.
Sometimes the wizard.
If you want to be in the background, and not say much, play a fighter.
And yeah, Kamino-sai mentions...
because there you can be as stern as Laconica and you want. No one will say boo about it, and you get a lot of action because you're always going to do stuff in fighting.
Kamino-sai mentions that that DPR, damage per round, DPS, is lower for a monk, but of course that's not necessarily what you're going for. The monk's bread and butter is Stunning Strike, which can, as you've seen, change the course of an entire battle. It's happened multiple times on this stream.
Well, the same too, and multiple attacks.
Yeah.
Like, just because, like, when we were fighting the Wizard of Thay, it didn't matter that he only had to roll above a 4 in order to keep his concentration. The fact that I made him roll like 8 different times,
yeah,
one of them was bound to fail.
Sooner or later, you're gonna fail. I was once in a level 20 dragon challenge. This was 3.5, where you made a squad of 4 level 20 characters and you played it against a dragon that had spellcasting class levels. It was awful. Imagine a dragon tumbling away from you to avoid attacks of opportunity. But the way I ended up dealing the most damage to it was just having the monk go up and slap it over and over again until it rolled a 1 on its stun save, and then unloading the nuke on it and almost killing it, and then it killed me because it was a giant dragon.
The Wizard of Thay, of course, lost its concentration because you try concentrating on anything when there's a tiny green monster punching you repeatedly in the face.
Yes.
Yeah, and even if each hit isn't doing much, like you said, Echo's not there to be the DPS, to be putting, 30, 40, 50, rounds of damage out per round. He's there to fuck up concentration. He's there to stun one person and take them out of the fight. He's there to go from that side of the arena over to the other side of the arena and interact with the thing they didn't want him to get to. Like,
and by the way, there is nothing stopping a monk from taking great weapon fighting with like a quarterstaff and doing that bonus damage, or taking polearm mastery, which gives, even more control over the battlefield. Like, yeah, no, I think the monk is highly underrated.
Oh yeah, monks are great, and they're in a period of unfortunate like unfair malignment, because like a lot of people are saying monks are bad, therefore monks are bad, and that just means they don't understand the class.
Well, yeah. And then now with the added utility of cleric as a spellcaster, I feel like he's one of the most well-rounded characters I've ever made in D&D.
Yeah. Monk Barbarian as a character, fun fact, in 3.5, I went to make a Monk Barbarian, but you have to have roleplay involved to do it, because in 3.5 monks had to be lawful and barbarians had to be chaotic. So in order to cross class, you would have to be a barbarian or a monk for a while and then go into being chaotic. Monk was the one class where, if unlike paladin or barbarian, if you lost your alignment, you still got to keep your old powers. You still got to keep everything that it was to be a monk. So you could go up the monk tree, then do some story to change to chaotic, whatever, and become a barbarian.
I like 5e's treatment a lot better. You have these stats. Yes, you can multi-class.
Yes.
Some like first editions, like the first printing run, didn't communicate that perfectly, but I digress. I'm liking my current direction with Calder with the pure sorcerer because
I avoid cross-classing myself.
Like I've walked into Calder wanting to multi-class, but every time I find myself learning and finding an excuse to not.
And on a pure caster, like on a full caster, you really want to just keep pumping that because eventually you're going to get the really high level spells that are absolutely incredible. I will sometimes dip into another class for a couple of levels to get a couple of specific perks, but I'm almost always single class all the way just because it's simpler.
Like I've said that if Calder ever goes away for a period of time and I have to play a different character for a while, what I'll probably end up doing is giving him a couple levels of fighter for his off-screen time because action surge is that good on a sorcerer.
It is really good on everybody.
But at present, but that would represent Calder going home and learning how to fight. But so as long as he's like out in the wild, keep getting in touch, like growing his own personal magic makes a lot of sense.
Ryandy says all this is well above my head, but I like hearing it. Yeah, we are kind of getting in a little bit into the nuts and bolts of the mechanics of Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh yeah.
But you also said something up a little bit higher that I really liked, which was it's D&D. Everyone thinks fighting, but not the case. There was some fighting today, but there were zero NPC, like violent NPC encounters for an entire session, and I love sessions like that.
So a little peek behind the DM screen here. I had the idea for doing this spar scene, and I normally, like Rob said, he doesn't allow PvP, which I think is a pretty good, base home rule for a DM to have. As long as everyone knows about it in the beginning, it's a pretty good way to keep the peace. But so I had to ask him, I was like, hey, I want to do this scene where Charlotte is going to try to ask Calder to come spar with her. And how do we do this? Like, I had to check in with Jeff and we had to go over, like, are you okay role playing this kind of scene? And I'm really happy with how it turned out. So I was very happy about that. But like, it directly contradicted one of our kind of role play safety rules. And so just wanted to give a little peek about, we did talk about this beforehand, and we did make sure everyone was aware of what was going on, rather than like just me springing this on another player of, hey, come fight me.
I've done storytelling for many different games over many different systems, for small groups and very large groups, and I find that one of the things that breaks a party down and ruins games the fastest is PvP. Players using their abilities on each other to try to do their own thing as opposed to work with the team, right? And because you all are A, role players that I very much trust, and B, because we established at the beginning consent for this, again, I love that you're talking safety, because a lot of folks, they see games like this and they don't realize just how emotionally connected you become to the character, to the point where you and the character can begin to bleed over, which has been happening a lot with a lot of the really emotional scenes that we've had here on our very own stream. And these safety rules are what keep us safe while we do it. When it becomes difficult to separate who is Jeff and who is Calder, the fact that you know that we've got your back and that we're using these very sort of set in stone rules that can be modified with active informed consent, makes it just safer all around and keeps us all from getting mad at each other out of character for things that were done in character, which does happen, and vice versa also happens.
Yep. It's characters are like I've heard it said that characters are just yourself, a part of yourself played at a different volume, and
Yes.
I very much am a believer of that. But you can tune it as much as you want, and so this is like always great. And but the moment you run that against another person, that friction can feel a lot more real than anyone ever
It's easy to
intended.
say that we're building a story together. It's a lot more difficult to feel it if you don't really trust the people around you to follow the rules or to do, what's best for everyone and not just for themselves.
Yeah.
And I trust Olivia implicitly for this sort of stuff. We're both very much believers of the yes and we want to make sure that the scenes build on each other and consistency of character, consistency of theme.
Yeah.
All of that worked really great, and all of that, like there was a lot of stuff behind the camera, but we still had no idea what was going to happen the moment we get onto the field because we don't want to know.
Yeah,
we want to see.
We talked through the setup, not the actual like turn to turn action.
And this is not professional wrestling. We did not know what the outcome was going to be.
and an often non-discussed portion of D&D is you're building a machine or you're building a thing that can fight for you, and it will do all the things that you design it to be able to do within the established rules. But occasionally, you'll look across the field, you'll see another character doing something with their sheet, and you'll go, "I want to fight that."
Yeah, I had a backup idea if anyone wasn't on board with this of a sort of magic dick waving contest of with like dummies or targets like trying to one up each other, not fighting directly but like trying to out impress the other person, which could have accomplished a lot of the same things. I'm just really glad that we gave the spar a try. It was a lot of fun.
It simultaneously like let us flex our new toys without hurting anything, and let us like still insinuate that there's stuff under the hood that people haven't seen yet.
Well, I mean, there was one fire beetle that was hurt in the making of this scene.
Yeah, but he'll get over it.
He's fine. He's fine. Magical construct.
I love that that it's a magical construct that is it is an animal that is explicitly fine. It'll be okay by tomorrow.
The next time you pull it out,
you'll be perfectly fine. And apparently it's the same thing. They all have a continuity of identity.
Yeah, which means if you happen to roll the same one twice when you already have if you already have the fire beetle out and you roll the fire beetle again, we'll probably have you re-roll. I know that Calder is fond often of just throwing all three of them out at once.
Oh yeah, the rules say if you roll the same thing when the other one's already out, roll again.
Got it.
And for people interested, he has a bag of tricks, the gray one.
Yeah, it's a little bag that allows you to pull out a little soft, like, I don't know, it's described as a fuzzball, and you throw it out and it turns into an animal. And there's a standard table of animals that it could be, but we've been adding to it because I love the bag of tricks, and it's everything. Everything from a tiny little fire beetle, which was indeed Gail's suggestion, all the way up to an elk the size of a moose, which is on the original table, and
explicitly a huge size elk.
Thing is like the size of an elephant. It's huge.
Yeah, why?
But I love the fire beetle. It's a little beetle the size of a dog. It's so cute.
Yeah, I love all of them have little fun like stat lines, and they have their own little rules that say stuff like the animal, like it's every person who loves animals' dream. You have a bag of fuzzy animals that when you dump them out, 3 of them will come to life, and they love you, love all of your friends, will otherwise behave like totally normal members of their species, but are extremely friendly to you.
And obedient of your orders. Yeah.
Yes. Defoe is first off. Community says T-Rex, which is not in the bag of tricks. Not this one.
No, that's not. T-Rexes don't show up in this game until level 8.
They will show up eventually. And then Defoe says that's why I don't have more characters, because it takes me time to develop my characters, and I agree with that so much. Jeff, actually, all 3 of us have been involved in very long-term live-action role-play campaigns. For me and Jeff, some of those were like World of Darkness LARPs that lasted for years. Like my longest lasting character lasted like 10 years before that particular chronicle ended. and I had to say goodbye to him, and that was really rough.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's even more like a tabletop environment is very good for immersing yourself, but there's nothing quite like being in a room with other folks who are dressed to the, to the theme, and who are interacting in character, and all of the little power struggles tend to be, although not always, tend to be short, small little asides to the descriptive action that's happening. And when I went to, and I'm going to flex a little bit, when I went to College of Wizardry in Poland, it was only 3 days, but by the end of the third day, I was thinking as my character. Like I stopped seeing myself as Rob and started seeing myself as my character at that time. And it took me a little while after I got on the bus back home that it took me a little while to get back into my real life personality, and I love that shit. I love that shit.
I've been running an online game for like in various forms for like and broken continuity from that, but I've been running a Legend of the Five Rings game in some form for the last 10+ years.
Yeah.
And it's I specialize in dynastic games, so you'll play your character so it's high XP. Everyone's developing quite quickly, and then over the course of like a year to 2 years, you develop your character from the very lowest to the very highest, and then everyone retires their characters at the same time. Everyone starts over at level 1, and you're playing the next generation, and it's the same continuity.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of fun. And that's a way of not just connecting with a character, because you're not just connecting with that character at that point. You're also connecting with their legacy,
with their lineage,
and, like,
yeah,
and their lineage, and talking about like their family and like the family they make that you watched and participated in helping to make.
I'm also a big fan when I'm working with a particular group of players. I often use players in previous games in future games. And I often have a certain amount of overlap because, of course, multiple adventures are happening at once, right? Like, that's kind of the way it goes. And almost every game I've ever run is either in the same continuity or has the potential to cross over. I ran a Storm King's Thunder game that Gale was in.
Yep.
That may or may not have some ancillary effect, because it turns out more things are happening than just one world-ending set of circumstances. Or maybe
Rob,
an echo of that will happen. Yeah.
Rob,
Turns out
if
they
you-
were constantly trying to end itself.
I was gonna say, my character from that game was a cleric of an evil god who kind of set the apocalypse in motion. So if you let me fight her as a villain, that would be amazing.
It would be pretty cool. It would be pretty cool.
I love her, my poor cursed child.
We are at about,
Hey,
we're coming up on the 4-hour mark, so we should probably wrap things up. Let me go ahead and bring us back on the rails and ask each of you the same 2 questions I always ask. And this is going to be a tough one to pick because we've already talked about all the things we loved. But I would love from each of you one particular scene or moment that you thought was particularly excellent, and one other player character that you would like to give some respect to for their performance today. And we're going to go ahead and start with Gale.
I had a lot of fun getting to embody Charlotte and Echo. They are such different characters from each other, so it was really kind of fun to be able to go from Charlotte, who's flexing her wizard stuff in a fighting ring, to Echo, who's trying not to have a panic attack, and getting to, move them along in the same, this is the same moment, the same day. So getting to be able to embody both of them, even though I'm only going to be continuing with one in the greater plot, getting to have this session where I get to really play both was a lot of fun.
It can be very difficult to go back and forth. You did very well with it.
I have a lot of experience DMing, so that's not that's not too hard for me, and it was fun to do it from the player side, where I don't know what the giant machinations are, but I get to play 2 of my special children, characters that I've made. Hell yes. And the person I want to shout out, I do really want to shout out M for being here. We weren't sure if they were going to be able to make it schedule wise, and it was very fun getting to bounce characters in scenes off of Hyacinth, who we haven't seen in a very long time. So that was a very hit to the nostalgia there.
Most of the folks who are watching right now weren't, not most, but some of the folks who are watching right now never met Hyacinth before at all, because it has been a while since the Sunless Citadel. And in fact, I'm going to go ahead and plug my YouTube once again. There is a playlist on there called the Bad Decisions Club, or it's called The Adventures of the Bad Decisions Club, which is why I got it mixed up earlier. And it has every single one of our sessions from the very beginning, which was almost a year and a half ago at this point. Yeah, it's been a very long campaign, and I've loved it.
Oh yeah.
Jeff, something that you particularly enjoyed and a player character that you want to give a shout out to.
Of course, I loved the fight. The fight was great. It was a great showcase, and a moment that I wanted to call out was at the very end when Calder decided to surrender, because Calder hit a point where it was, I know I burned out that shield. I know I could push further. I know I could hurt her. I know I could hurt her more, and then have that moment, and then that's when I hit the moment of, oh, I'm actually thinking about wanting to hurt my friend. I think I'm done.
and she did, to be fair, when it comes to raw numbers, even if you don't include all the damage that was done to shields and stuff, took more damage than you. She took 19 points of damage total to her actual physical corporeal health, and you took, I think, 12, even including the lightning bolt. So you did do more damage to her, and yeah, it could have very easily become lethal.
Yeah, I had the material. I absolutely could have, because I have on my notes how to actually get as much raw dice in damage on the field as I can. And as a sorcerer, I absolutely can make it happen.
Sorcerers are really good at doing the same thing over and over again.
Oh yeah, no one beats a sorcerer in spell slots, period. And so being able to just hammer that down, he absolutely could have pushed it, absolutely could have let it all out, but it felt like a very poignant moment for Calder to be in this ring, to be against an opponent that is by all accounts is equal, and hit that moment of wanting to hurt someone, and that's when he made me go, oh no, I want to hurt someone. No.
Yeah, it was a great end. I agree.
It was that it let him back down, and that was it was a good internal moment for him, that got expressed outward, and also I think that is an internal alignment moment where we I think it's at this point I really should just kick his alignment all the way over to good, because he made a conscious decision to not do the selfish thing.
Yeah, and it's one of those beautiful moments where even the character isn't 100% sure of what choice they would make until they actually have the choice in front of them.
Yeah.
And I got to do all of that without dropping polymorph, which again,
could have been anticlimactic. Yes.
There's definitely an AU where they agree to fight, and Calder's opening move is heightened polymorph, turn you into a fish.
Yeah. I think,
and then just wait until you pass out, and just wait until the fish passes out.
Psychanthropes making a reference. You would have to shout to let it all out. He's talking to you.
That's called the verbal component.
And you did already have that moment in a previous session of combat starts, large threat, boom, it's dealt with. You've already uncorked the polymorph in a very great situation.
Oh yeah, and I've successfully insinuated in my DM fear of the polymorph.
Oh so. No, I am specifically terrified of the twinned polymorph because it is explicitly on the list of spells that you are allowed to twin. So I'm terrified of that. And
that's just offensive. Just imagine the horrible nonsense it'll get up to when I twin it defensively and turn two of your PCs into something garbage.
Into T-Rexes, because everyone loves a T-Rex.
You're gonna have two hasted T-Rexes. Enjoy.
It's gonna be a lot of fun, and that's why we're moving on to bigger and better things, right? You're moving on to larger and more intricate and also more powerful encounters, which will be a challenge for you even under those circumstances. There's a thing about D&D that a lot of people who don't really have an intense understanding of it kind of tend to say, which is that the fighting is just, I pick an enemy, I attack the enemy, I roll the dice, I do the math. Pick another enemy, attack it, roll the dice, do the math. And you two, in your duel, showcased an incredible level of creativity in your spellcasting, which I really loved. You weren't just aiming to do the most damage possible every round. You were actually taking advantages of weaknesses you knew in the other person. You were using cantrips to excellent effect, specifically you, Jeff. Minor Illusion is one of my favorite spells in the entire game, and using it specifically against someone who just said they are not using the echolocation of their bat to track things. Like, I thought that went really well. I loved using darkness against Calder of all people. Yeah, I mean, overall, it was a very intelligent fight, and it was a great showcase of how smart and tactical spellcasters can be, as opposed to just being fireball, fireball, fireball. Yes, it ended up with all of the d6s being rolled, but like that was the culmination at the end. It wasn't just, I'm going to do as much damage as possible, blast, 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 pew, pew, pew. Anyway, I started blasting. Like it was very psychological, and the conversation thread going through it was also very compelling.
Your combat abilities are just as able to tell a story as your non-combat abilities.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's often important to remember that like the stuff on your sheet is there all the time. So it's keep in mind that the type of character that you're making and the type of character that you're attempting to explore you're still just as much as a fighter when you're on the battlefield to not. You're just as good of a monk when you're on the battlefield or not. You're just as good of a spellcaster whether you are in court or in a dungeon. Think creatively. That's why it's there.
Yeah, absolutely. And with that, we have passed go ahead.
And I would be remiss if I did not give my shout out for the player I enjoyed was Olivia. Thank you so much. That was a lot of fun.
My cat literally just jumped up onto my monitor. Fortunately, that doesn't actually shake anything. Unfortunately, it wasn't the camera. I'm definitely gonna have to go and pay attention to him at some point because he's got the zoomies. But before I go, assuming that the cat doesn't sabotage my stream in the next couple of minutes, go ahead and give your plugs. We're gonna go backwards this time. Let's start with Jeff.
As always, on Instagram and TikTok, you'll find me at still tired and angry, where I do a bunch of art, usually sketches and portraits of the like. I've been doing commissions of late, and I will be posting those pictures soon. But yeah, I'd be happy to respond to people. So just message me, hit me up. I'll see what I can do for you, maybe.
Fantastic, Gail. I believe you have a Tumblr.
I do have a Tumblr. It's A Measure of Separation. It's misspelled. I put it in chat. That's where I post a lot about Echo and things that may or may not be canon. Lots of fan art, lots of some AMVs, that sort of thing. So yeah, check it out if you want to hear my idea of who should get together and what sort of shipping should be done, all that sort of thing. I like being a fan of the show I'm on.
You can find me on Twitch and Twitter at MathDemigod. You can also find me on Patreon at MathDemigod. If I end up getting sufficient income from that somehow, some way, someday, I would be able to do a lot more of this. I'd be able to run different groups. I really enjoy doing what I do. But unfortunately, I need to have a day job in order to survive. So you can find me there as well. I'm going to go ahead and plug my YouTube channel one more time so that if you want to see not just VODs of past D&D games, but VODs of me playing XCOM, of me playing Portal, of me playing a bunch of different games, you can check it out there. You can find M at One Silver Key on all the things. I'm shouting them out right now. And also, I am plugging if I can, I'm scrolling up. I am plugging the GoFundMe. Oh, wait, you're going to see it for a second there. I am plugging the GoFundMe as well. Again, they did have, wow, that shouldn't have been all of that, but whatever. They did go through an apartment fire recently, so even if you just copy, you only need to copy up to the first question mark after Fire Relief Fund. That's the only relevant part of the link. If you share it, it would be very, very useful. If you have the ability to donate, please consider doing so. It's very expensive to live when you don't have an apartment to live in. When you have to live in temporary housing like a hotel for an extended period of time, while working on moving expenses, while working on building up a security deposit for another place, or moving expenses to go across the country, which is a possibility. It's very, very expensive. So please, please, please jump on Twitter, jump on Reddit, jump wherever it is that you jump, share that link. It would really be a massive help. Thank you for being here. Any last words from our players?
Happy Pride Month.
Absolutely agreed. Thank you very much for being here. Folks who are at home, we are going to do, theoretically, our next D&D game 2 weeks from today, but I am streaming every single day at 3 p.m. Pacific. I'm doing various video games, so you can find me all the time. But 2 weeks from today, which is the 28th of June, is theoretically our next D&D game. Thank you for being here. I love you all very much. Have a good night.